Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Coach Candy here with Coffee Chats. Welcome, y'all. It is so great to have you. Today, we are going to continue our conversation around why you're feeling stuck, what happens when you are feeling unmotivated, and how do you get your groove back? How do you get back into that swing? Good morning, Deborah. So I want you to grab your coffee, your tea, your water, whatever it is, or like if you're me today, your apple cider vinegar and lemon and water, whatever it is that gets you rocking and rolling. Let's do this morning. Good morning, Peggy. Good morning, ladies. How are you? Like I said, we're going to continue some of our discussion from yesterday as we got into some really good, juicy conversation about top of the morning to you too. As we got into some great conversation around motivation and what happens when you get stuck and what happens when you're feeling like you're in that funk and you can't seem to light the fire to get things going. Want to talk about what's causing some of that demotivation, what are some strategies we can do to move that forward, and how to get your groove back on. Hey, good morning, Paul. Good morning, Shirley. Good morning, Carol. Good morning, everyone. Ooh. Hopefully everybody's having a great week. It is Wednesday, y'all. We are here ready to rock. So yesterday we got into one of the demotivations, which was around fear, and we ended up spending a good part of the conversation talking about fear and how that shows up and how that sometimes can be debilitating. The other things we talked about yesterday, just as a quick recap, is the fact that motivation is not something that someone can do for you, and it's not something that you can find outside. It is something that is that deep intrinsic space. Good morning, Martha. Good morning, Yvette. Good morning, everyone. It's that space of where you choose. And motivation is something that is self-intrinsic. It's something that comes from within. And oftentimes we need the momentum before we can actually get motivated. And so sometimes I think we wait to get motivated to get momentum, and we need to do the other thing. We also talked about the buckets of potential and taking massive action and how that impacts our results and our belief and conviction and confidence in that space. Good morning, everyone. And so want to continue that conversation because we got through one of the potential things that could be getting in your way, that could be stopping you from feeling motivated, for having you feel a little stuck. And so while we talked about fear yesterday, I want to talk about another reason why you might be feeling stuck or be feeling like you're unmotivated. And that could be because you have the wrong goals or the wrong priorities. And so think about, and we've done a lot of conversation around your calendar, and for those of you that want more, I have a whole program on that. But it's one of those spaces that oftentimes our calendar is jammed up with 60 to 80% of things that aren't aligned with what's most meaningful for us, what we value most. Oftentimes we take and make reactions based on how we feel about something and what emotion shows up, rather than what are we making choices based on what we value most. And so yes, let's see what Paul's saying. Demotivation, lack of sleep. My wife asked me if it was hard after a Facebook talk. I told her I was just really tired. Yeah, lack of sleep can be a huge reason for not feeling motivated if for whatever reason. And I know last night I had a hell of a time sleeping. I don't know if some of you saw my post, but once again, those little feisty critters took me down, and I thought I was going to get through a whole summer without getting a fire ant bite, and needless to say, not so much. And I have a really bad allergic reaction to them, and so wherever they choose to bite blows up like 5 times its size. The pain and the itching is just insane. So I was up much of the night with just a lot of discomfort, and so lack of sleep absolutely can create that space of feeling unmotivated. It's one of the reasons why we need to honor our evening bookend so much, in the way we close our day and the practice that we have to give ourselves the best option for sleep. It's why our environment means so much, all those things. So I say that, but the other space that could have us feeling unmotivated is because we're setting the wrong goals. We have the wrong priorities in front of us, or we have too many priorities. And you've heard me say this before, but and really needs to look at having no more than 3 priorities at any given time. And one of them really is about your self-care. So the other 2 are more project-based or more outcome-driven, goal-driven. And when you think about that, do you have the right goals set inside of those priorities? Because oftentimes what happens is we find ourselves getting in bed, and this goes to even what Paul just said, some of the reason we don't get adequate sleep is because we're tossing and turning and we're playing the tape of all the things we didn't do, of all the things we still have to do, of all the shoulds we put all over ourselves. And so sometimes it's really getting very clear about what are the right goals right now. And there's this really awesome thing you can create, which is a parking lot, which is a way to put things that have your attention, that are kind of that shiny squirrel moment. You can put them up on a parking lot, whether it's, you type it on your computer. I have a visual one, so that I can go back and do a monthly check to say, okay, is this what I need or not? So I can stay the course so that I'm focused on 1 or 2 or 3 things at one time, and I'm not allowing myself to get distracted. Distraction is a really big way to feel unmotivated, to feel stuck. It can also create a lot of procrastination. And so distraction leads to procrastination, which leads to unmotivation, right? And so getting super clear on the goals that you're going after, getting super clear on your priorities makes a lot of difference to help you feel like you're back on track. So how to get motivated? Take some time. Carve time out to actually review your goals. Actually look at what's most meaningful for you. And again, use the filter of what do I value most? What's going to be most significant in terms of moving my life forward, in terms of various things that I want or I'm trying to open up, right? Good morning, Herbie. I said Harry because I saw Herbie Harris. Man, my brain. See, this is what happens when you're up with fire ant bite. Nice. I already got my first DMU candy burro this morning. Excellent. DYCB. I love it. So good morning, everyone. And so the other reason then, so say so this plays in the same space. So you have the wrong goals, or you have too many goals, or you have the wrong priority set. The other reason why you feel demotivated or unmotivated is because you have a lack of clarity. So you might know what your goals or your targets are, and yet you might be really unclear about what it is you really want. And so one of the things that happens is oftentimes we say we want one thing, yet really, truly, if we were honest with ourselves, we want something a little bit different. And I'll give you an example. I had a client who was really getting frustrated in her personal relationship. She was dating someone for quite some time. And she's like, it's not like I ever want to get married again. I don't want to get married. She's divorced. She's like, I don't want to get married. And one time when she was really getting frustrated with something that had happened between them, a conversation, she started just going off. I mean, she was venting. She was just letting it release. And she said, well, I don't even understand. Why doesn't he just ask me to marry him? I was like, okay, time out. You've said for as long as I've known you, and we've worked together for years, that you don't want to be married. And here in this space, when you're allowing yourself to vent the frustration and put everything out there, you're telling me you're upset because he hasn't proposed to you. She's like, well, I just want the choice. And I said, what is it you really want? And this is such an example of what happens for a lot of us is we say we want something, and oftentimes we put it in the construct of what we think is socially acceptable, what we think we should want inside that space. And especially if there's any kind of materialism or perceived materialism or any kind of judgment or anything else inside that space, oftentimes we say we want one thing, yet truly underneath the surface we want something else. And when you're not clear, that can zap your energy. That can have you feeling so unmotivated because you're working towards something you don't really want instead of what's really in your heart. And it takes that opportunity to get into your body and get into your truth to say, is this what I really want? Or is this a mask because I think it's what other people expect me to want? Or it's what's socially acceptable or what I'm doing when I shit all over myself. And so I want you to think about that. If there's a lack of clarity, clarity is kind, and Brene Brown says that all the time, right? Clarity is kind, unclear is not. And the thing is, you got to be clear with yourself first. If you're going to set boundaries and set expectations, because this is the other reason why you feel unmotivated, is you've got other people that are pushing on you because you haven't created that clarity to say what's okay for you and what's not okay for you. And so clarity is a really big key. If you're feeling unmotivated, it's an opportunity to sit down and say, What do I really want? And am I very clear on what I'm visualizing as that outcome? And am I creating the right boundaries and expectations around what it is I want? Because otherwise you're constantly fighting against that energy of, I don't really want that, and I don't really want to voice my opinion on that, and I'm sort of embarrassed about that, and there's shame, and there's just this exhausting energetic dance that you're doing inside that space. You bet. Ha ha ha, I swear you secretly follow me all day. Yeah, you never know. I'm watching. I'm like, I got eyes everywhere, right? I just speak the truth. I just speak things that go on in my own life, as well as, like I said, I teach what I need to learn as much as what I want to put out there for all of you. And so I have moments where I feel unmotivated. I'm human like anybody else. And it takes me getting in to say, where is that coming from? And how can I redirect, or how can I take some ownership of that? Herbie, how do I step in and see a DM you can't even run in the first 7 minutes? What just happened? Replay. That's hilarious. She's speaking some truth to me. That's funny. Oh my gosh. Yes, I gotta love when I have a damn you can't even run and we're only 10 minutes into the call. That's awesome. So if the first one is, and so just a little recap there, Herbie, but you can go back and rewind, is the fact that, if you're setting the wrong goals and you have too many goals, too many priorities, too many goals that are on your plate, that is absolutely one of the reasons why you're feeling unmotivated, is because there's too much and there's not the right things that are most meaningful for you in terms of what you value, not what you're emotionally reacting to. And so be clear that when you set your goals, when you set your targets, that they are things that are aligned to what you value and what is most meaningful for you in terms of what you want to create or access for your life, not for an instant gratification of an emotional response in that moment. And then it's getting clear about what you really want, getting clear about what boundaries and expectations you need. Because if you don't have either one of those things, it is an energy suck for sure, and it will get you spiraling in a space where you feel exhausted because all you're doing is fighting this uphill battle in a space you're never going to win. And so I just want you to realize that having the wrong goals and not being clear about what you want or about what you need or what's safe for you is also something that's depleting you and can have you feeling stuck and unmotivated. The other one, and this goes into the same kind of space, is if you feel like your values are being conflict. If you feel like your values are in conflict. So this goes to, especially in that clear space and not creating boundaries, when you create goals, and I know this, for those of you that are in corporate, you know this as well, that sometimes we do what we think we have to do because our job's on the line or because we have, certain things going on. And there are so many times I've left companies. My first job out of college, first job, I was in Cleveland, Ohio. I ended up leaving before Christmas. I was there 11 months, 14 days. I moved in a blizzard, moved out in a blizzard. It was the most miserable experience in my life and one of the most biggest growth opportunities I ever had. And it was one of those that the company, the way they did business, you want to talk about people that bought customers and did this snaky, it just so violated my core values that I was completely unmotivated to go to work. I was almost depressed. I was exhausted. I was tired because I was fighting every day against something that absolutely conflicted with my core values. It was, in fact, I used to say that The Office really, truly, and I'm going to date myself here, but if you remember the show WKRP in Cincinnati and some of the stereotypes and there was a lot of that energy, truthfully, in this office. And it was something that really, truly triggered my core values. And I made a decision, December 14th, I made a decision that I was leaving because I was like, I can't spend the holidays here. I'm completely at the end of my rope. And I didn't have a job at that time. And I just knew, I'm like, I will figure it out after the holidays. But I packed up all my stuff, got a U-Haul, had a friend come out and help me. And I moved back to my mom's, my very first job out of college, 11 months in, because my values were so conflicted that I knew I could not stay in that space and have any kind of motivation, drive, or have my wellness intact, that I moved to my mom's. And after the Christmas holiday, I started putting things out there. And by the end of January, I had a job, and that moved me up to Naperville, Illinois. And so I knew that, I trusted that, but that space of being conflicted in your values, we diminish that, we dismiss that too often. And we wonder why we're not motivated. It's because we said yes to something oftentimes that's not aligned to our core values. Or we find ourselves saying yes and then found out it wasn't quite what was sold to us on the front end. And we struggle because our core values are screaming at us. Our core values are like, this isn't who we are. This feels out of integrity. Ugh. And it feels like this heavy burden we wear on us. And it becomes armor, and it becomes this space where we shut down. And I see too many people, especially in the corporate sector, who are compromising their values, compromising their voice, compromising their own sense of integrity, and wondering why they feel so disengaged, why they feel like work is just, I gotta go to work, right? Talk about the ultimate unmotivated space. I gotta do this. And a lot of that comes from a misalignment of values and a misalignment of integrity. And so I put that out there. So I want you to think about that. Think about where in your life there might be a conflict in terms of your values and your sense of integrity, and what you're allowing to enter that space instead of creating real boundaries and expectations. This is all of what drives some of that space of feeling really stuck and unmotivated. Yvette, and not really having goals, that's my issue. Yeah, not having goals at all. That's another one, right? If you have zero goals, you don't know what you're moving towards, you know, as the Cheshire Cat asked Alice once in Alice in Wonderland, where do you want to go? And she's like, doesn't matter. He goes, then any road will get you there. It's why we have a GPS. It's why we plug in a destination. If you don't have a destination, if you don't have a goal that you're moving towards, then how can you create your own, good morning, Terry, create your own GPS or your own sense of due north to know what you're moving towards and know how to measure progress and success along the way? Yes, remember that show. So let's see. Hi, Mandissa's good morning, or just your personality. That's funny. Let's see, in late, and since we already have 2 Damn You Candy Barones, I love that. I definitely have to go back and watch the beginning. You guys were hilarious. I love that. I was just talking about that. I was at a networking event last night. We were talking about Damn You Candy Barone. It was awesome. So what about knowing what you want to move away from? Yeah, and so here's the thing. If you know what you want to move away from, how do you create that plan then to say, this isn't aligned with what I want? This isn't. And so a lot of times it's not. It's letting go of focusing on what you don't want. So as soon as you're clear about, I don't want this, this isn't for me, this doesn't feel like it's aligned, instead of putting any more energy to push away from that, what I want you to do is drop it and say, okay, if this is clear what I don't want, then what is it I do want instead? And so a great example for that for me is when I looked at, a defining moment I had at 8, and it was around my father. And I remember, I had so much hate and contempt for him. And I made a decision at 8 years old. And I know I shared that story with some of you on another episode, was really around a moment where I saw myself behaving like my father, and it broke my heart. It was even at 8 out of integrity with who I was. And it was such a powerful moment for me. And I remember saying to myself, making a commitment that said, I don't ever want to be him. And for a long time, I fought against everything that represented my dad to not be him. And it wasn't until I dropped him to say, if I don't want to be him, if he's the model for what I don't want to be, then what do I want to be instead? What's the other side of the spectrum? How do I want to show up? And that's where some of my work really got to be more meaningful. Everything from being a Girl Scout leader back in high school, being a cadet, doing the Silver Award, all that, to all of the various organizations I ran in college, to things that I did in my career, to programs that I started, to things that I did. It's because I started to shift and kept shifting my focus on what I didn't want and letting that go, and focusing on what I do, what was really meaningful for me and what I wanted to move towards instead. So when you know what you don't want or what you want to move away from, identify it, and then immediately shift to, okay, if this is the gauge of what I don't want and it's a great metric for me, then let me put all of my energy, my visualization, all of my focus on what I do want to bring to me and what space I do want instead. Much better use of your energy, and you will feel yourself stoking that fire of motivation much, much more. And so want you to really think about that, right? So hopefully that helps there. Terry, can we have a hashtag DYHH? Because the statement is my 2x4 at the moment. Damn you, Herbie Harris. You get a damn you. That's awesome. And another damn you, Kenny Brown. I love this. Man, we were all fired up this morning. That's awesome. Herbie Harris, you just got your own hashtag, my friend. Martha, for me, it is more powerful to run to something rather than run from something. Yes, and from a neurolinguistic programming perspective, it is a much higher vibration and is a much better use of our energy. Whenever we are resisting, whenever we're talking about what we don't want, when we're pushing, when we're pulling, what happens is we're going to manifest and bring more of that to us. So if you're like, I don't want this environment, I don't want to be here anymore, the more you focus on it, the more you're going to keep spiraling in it, because the more you're going to bring it to you. What you focus on, what you think and speak about, you bring about. So instead of you shift and say, I'm over this, I'm done, close it off, this excites me. And that's the other thing, it's finding your passion. Sometimes we don't know what we're most passionate about, and passion in relation to what is most meaningful and value to yourself. The other space, and now for some of you, this could vacillate on either side. The other space, let me see what some of you are saying. Terry, for my biz, I have a very clear what we are and what we're not, but I don't have one for my person. Got some work to do. Yeah, right, that's excellent. Yeah, very, very cool, love that. Terry, loving Martha's comment as well. So here's one that some of you may vacillate depending on how your energy is fed. If you're introverted or extroverted. Introverted or extroverted doesn't mean are you someone that talks to people or not. It's where you derive your energy. I am both, and I swing mightily between both spaces. I'm either really out or I'm really in. There's not a lot of in between for me. And so one of the spaces people feel unmotivated though is when they feel a lack of autonomy. When they feel like they don't have a voice, when you feel like you can't contribute to your own work. Some people actually are unmotivated when they're too autonomous and they don't have energy from other people to bounce ideas. They don't have other people that feed and give them some energy. So noticing where you get your energy from, your lack of motivation might be coming from the sense of you don't have enough autonomy. And for people in corporate, this is a big one sometimes. They don't feel they have a voice. They don't feel like the work they're doing is really valued, especially if you're in the space where, the biggest metric, which just still blows my mind that this is an actual metric, is how much stuff can you put out. And I would fight that every time. For 20 years in corporate, I'm like, I don't understand why you want more stuff, because stuff for the sake of stuff is pointless. I remember even doing Six Sigma. For those of you who don't know, I'm a Six Sigma black belt. And we did it for global sales and marketing, which is like almost ridiculous. You're just setting yourself up to get your ass kicked, let me just say. Because what happens is they're trying to use these statistical analysis tools when you're predicting patterns that you've seen for sales that hasn't even happened, for product lines that haven't been developed, right? And so we went out there and they would be like, well, we need to use this chart. I'm like, well, that chart doesn't fit because we don't have historical data to actually represent what this statistic's going to tell us. And so then they would be like, well, just come up with a way to make it up because we need the stuff. We need to check the box that graph got done. And it was mind-blowing to me that we would be in this space where it was about the stuff when it was completely pointless. There was no data to support the tool or the graph that they wanted done. And so just to check the box, we had to be in a space of, which for me felt very much like I didn't have a sense of value. Hello, Barb. Good morning. So I want you to think about, do you have enough autonomy in the work that you're doing? Do you feel like there's an ownership? Do you feel like what you're creating, do you feel like you're creating, first of all? Because that's another reason people don't feel that autonomy, is they don't feel like they're creating anything. They feel like they're just running in the hamster wheel, or it's like Groundhog's Day every day, right? You wake up, you hit play, you brush your teeth, you go to the bathroom, you get your coffee, you go to work. It's the same thing. You do the same thing. You come home. It's wash, rinse, repeat, right? And as Pat McCurdy used to say, when I was up in Milwaukee, he would say, I get up, go to work, get drunk, go to sleep. Still blows my mind that that's the song that everybody be like, woo, right? I'm like, are you listening to the words? I get up, go to work, get drunk, go to sleep. Wow, fantastic. People are unmotivated when they don't feel like they get to add value. People are unmotivated when they feel like they don't get to create, when they don't have a voice. And so perhaps some of the reason why you feel stuck is you don't feel like you have enough of a voice. Maybe you're in a relationship where that's true. Maybe you're feeling that in terms of your community, whatever that might be. Good morning. Boom. Yes, absolutely. And so think about where that might be showing up for you. Is there a lack of autonomy? And for those of you that have too much autonomy, maybe it's a lack of not being able to connect. So you have a lack of connection versus a lack of autonomy. And so get clear, because again, it's where you draw your energy from. And sometimes we have both. Sometimes we feel like we have a lack of autonomy in one relationship and we feel like we have a lack of connection in others. These all are driving forces for what causes us to feel unmotivated. And so I want you to think about where, if you're feeling stuck in any way, if you're feeling exhausted, if you're having a hard time sleeping, if you're finding that your head is going like crazy at night when you lay your head down on the pillow, there are things that are showing up that have you being pulled out of your focus, being pulled out of what motivates you, being pulled out of where your passion is and your strength is. And so these are some of the things that you can ask yourself as you're evaluating where you're at. Martha, yes, checking the box conflicts with my core values of honesty and reality. I totally agree. Check the box is the most annoying thing on the planet to me, in my opinion, and it does compromise my core values, because for me to be in integrity, it's me doing my best work. If I follow the 5 agreements from Don Miguel Ruiz and one of them says, do your best, checking a box for me is not doing my best, and that feels very out of alignment for me. Yvette, you have just described the last 3 years of my job. Unfortunately, I've probably described the last couple years for many people in their job. And so there's a reality and a truth for you to lean into and ask yourself, what does that mean for you, right? Total hamster wheel, the whole Groundhog's Day going over and over again. Because here's the next reason you might be feeling stuck or unmotivated, and it's the lack of being challenged. So here's the thing, you have a lack of autonomy, you have a lack of connection, you have a lack of clarity, you have a lack of goals or the right goals or priorities, you have this fear showing up about all these different things, and you're not being challenged in your work. You're not being challenged in a way that's pushing you out of your comfort zone. Because I'm going to tell you, there's people that think being in the comfort zone is awesome. And they're like, oh, that's great, I'm content. They're not motivated. There's no motivation in comfort. There is absolutely, and I want you to really think about that. There is absolutely no motivation in your comfort zone. There's just not. So if you're sitting in your comfort zone, you're not motivated, you're copping out. You're allowing life to just pass you by. You're on autopilot. Motivation comes from the challenges that allow us to lean into something bigger. It's the challenges that allow us to show up. Good morning, Preston. Yvette went from working for a small business to a larger corporation side. Yeah, and there's benefits, there's pros and cons to both, right? And it's that space of, are you feeling challenged in your work? And for some people, I do a lot of this work when I work with my corporate peeps, which is really around the space of, so it bleeds all over in other aspects of my life. Absolutely, and that's such a good point, Yvette, that here's the thing, when you have something missing in one aspect of your life, it truly bleeds into all of the other aspects of your life, because it's not life-work balance, first of all. I want you all to realize that. It is your life. Your life is the only thing. It's the all-encompassing. You are one person. It is your life. And work is simply one of those buckets, just like your emotional bucket, your spiritual bucket, your community bucket, your financial bucket, your health bucket, your family bucket, your friend bucket, any other buckets you might have. They are all buckets of one space called your life. And so when one spoke, and we do the wheel of life a lot when we're in my workshops, when you have one spoke on the wheel not working for you, you've got like the Fred Flintstone wheel that's like clunk, right? It's like that big rock that's not going to move forward because you don't have a symmetrical space. You don't have harmony. And it's not to say that for some people, not all the spokes need to be even. And you might pull a spoke out and say, that's not important for me at this phase of my life. So take it off the wheel. What happens is we think it's life-work balance when it's actually life harmony. You have a moving target, a moving center, and it's at all times, are you as close to that center point as possible? Wherever your life is swinging and moving, and it's that space of really recognizing that. And if you're not being challenged in that, if you're not being pushed to grow, if you're not finding out and tapping into more of that potential, you're probably feeling a little stuck and unmotivated. They're there for a reason, right? You bet. So I'm a big ball of unmotivation and I don't feel like it. Great. So here's the thing, if that's really the reality of that, and first of all, thank you for your honesty and being so vulnerable, then the opportunity is to say, what are my choices and what do I want to do differently to get myself unstuck and unmotivated? So I'm finally realizing it, and I called Candy to help me unpack this. Awesome. I love that. Absolutely, right? And that's what we're doing. We're unpacking. We're untethering from the narrative. And there's a lot of narrative in. And like I said, if you didn't get into all of the different types of narratives and the way that this is really shutting you down, then I really, really, really encourage you to go check out the Yes Monthly program, because this is the training that we've been doing all month, is getting into these narratives, getting into what stories are creating that space of you still feeling stuck. Good morning, Shirley. Good morning, Renee. Oh, we got a full house today. I love it. So I want you to think about, where are those spaces? If there's some reality, if you're getting kind of hit by the 2x4 right now, as Terry said, I want you to think about, all right, there's some truth to why I'm feeling unmotivated, or why I feel like I just don't want to do it, or why I feel stuck. And if I'm going to get my groove back, if I'm going to get my space to step back up and play at my highest and best level, then I got to get really honest about which one of these things, or which combination of these things, is affecting me right now. What narrative, what story am I playing as a result of that? And how do I take ownership and control and start to make new decisions and change the narrative? And again, I'm going to put up my little sign, my little Oprah statement. This narrative changes today. And so I want you to realize that when we get awareness, when we have that breakthrough, it's an opportunity to hit reset and pause and say, okay, this doesn't serve me anymore. What's my plan to move me forward in a new direction? And it's just putting a new plan together. Terry, anyone else here bucket in the as Candy listed them all? Too many buckets equal. I love it. Oh my God, that's so freaking fantastic. Good morning, y'all. Yes, ha ha ha. Diet and exercise has been neglected, and I feel that too. Yeah, here's what happens when we're feeling unmotivated, especially in our work. When we're feeling unmotivated because there's a lack of challenge, there's no purpose, there's no passion, we don't have the clarity, we don't have the right goals, or we don't have goals, we are feeling a lack of autonomy or a lack of connection, that also starts to impact our health and wellness. It starts to impact, I don't feel like getting up this morning, I don't want to. And so then we have this cycle that just keeps feeding itself. Not only are we not honoring and respecting our natural energetic source, which is the food we consume, the way we move our body, which is absolutely something we need to play at our highest and best level, we start to compromise everything else in our life. We start to sacrifice things that are actually most meaningful for us. And so having that opportunity to get clear on where you're feeling stuck starts to open up access for other things in your life as well. And so there's a couple others I want to go through, but I think I'm going to actually save those. I actually have 4 more. I'm going to save those for tomorrow, because I think there's a lot that we just jumped into for today. And I think looking at the other ones I want to talk about, these are going to open up a whole nother level of conversation. I also want to talk about what are some ways you can get back on track to get that groove going again. Be your Stella, right? Be Stella and get your groove back. Because we all have moments where we're feeling unmotivated. We all have spaces where we get stuck. It's human nature. It's a cultural thing we've created, and it's an opportunity for you to start to lean in and say, okay, first of all, I want all of you right now, because I know as much as we're playing with some of the damn you candy Bruins and the bucket stuff, I want you right now, because I can feel it. I can feel it even in my own space right here, I want all of you to plant your feet firmly on the ground. I want to make sure you get off this call, because these are some big conversations, and I want to make sure that you have the tools to allow yourself to breathe into it, truly breathe into it. So what I want you to do is I want you to take your middle finger to thumb. Once again, we've done this before, this grounding exercise. I want you to put your feet on the floor, and if you want to close your eyes, great, but what I want you to do is I want you to take 3 big belly breaths from your entire core, so that when you breathe in that energy, I want you to feel it fill every cell of your body deliberately. Like, I want you to breathe it in so big so that you can't breathe in anymore. And then before you exhale, I want you to hold it for a few seconds, so that all this energy, all this anxiety, all this truth, all this noise, all the narratives that are going on right now can get attached to that breath. And then what I want you to do is pretend you're breathing it back out through a straw. And I want you to breathe it out as slowly and deliberately as possible until you feel like you're completely, like the tank has been like you are empty. You just breathe it out, and like a tire going flat, right? So I want you to breathe that in. I want you to really ground yourself. I want you to breathe that in. I want you to hold that so you can attach all that icky stuff that's starting to bubble and surface for some of you. And I want you to release it so that you're not pushing that into your body. Because when you talk about, my diet and exercise, when we start to hold it in our body, when we hold our breath, when we're not breathing, we start to manifest other symptoms. We create these physiological ways that our body responds to fear and stress. And for some of you, while we're being a little punchy in some of the conversation, I know that this is hitting a nerve for you. I know that this is getting into some triggers, and I know that this is getting into some space that can raise that level of anxiety and stress. So what I want you to do is I want you to breathe. I want you to learn the practice of breathing into your fear. And yesterday we talked about one of the biggest reasons you're feeling unmotivated is when fear shows up. And with this whole conversation today, there's a lot of opportunity where fear shows up. And so I want you to breathe. I want you to be gentle and kind to yourself and to your body. And so as I'm kind of still going through some of these, I want you to just breathe it in all the way to your top of your hair, down to your tippy toes. And if your hair is done like mine today, it's going to be extra high. But I want you to fill every space, every cell of your body with that clean, abundant, beautiful, releasing energy. And then I want you to attach any of that icky, anxiety, stress, whatever's there, and then blow it out through a straw as if you're deflating a tire. So let's see, Yvette, to give context, the small business I was working for was acquired by a larger company. I was supposed to have been laid off, but I was rehired in the last moment. Job duties changed, so have been feeling a bit out of control. Yeah, that happens a lot of times in acquisitions. Core values of the companies change drastically when they have people come in. So things are supposed to be feeling that way too. I love that. Aren't you supposed to be on your feet modeling this too? Yes, and you actually, I prefer to sit when I do breathing exercises like this, Herbie, truthfully. I know I do it when I'm standing in front of a room of people, but I actually like to because I can really ground my butt into the seat and I can ground my feet into the floor, which allows me to have more that I can push into the earth. Plus, I've also noticed that if I have really big anxiety or fear showing up sometimes, doing this can actually make me a little lightheaded, where I feel like I want to sway. And so I like to be mindful of the fact that, I sit, my feet are firmly planted. I can feel and channel energy through my backside into the earth, so that everything's going out through my butt and my legs and clearing out of my body. So thank you, because yes, I could be doing this standing up, and I can do it very effectively sitting down as well. And by the way, you can do this in your car when there's a stoplight. If you just need to take a deep breath, just take a deep breath. Allow yourself that space to create peace for yourself and to create that calm. And so again, just want you to have some tools as we're walking out of this conversation, because I know how big this conversation is and I know the triggers and the things that show up as a result. Terry replying to Yvette, that's a tough transition for sure. Give yourself love and grace as you go, and maybe get clear on what you do know and do have control over. There may be more than you're aware of. Absolutely. And love and grace is the big, thank you, Terry, for sharing that. The more we can have love, compassion, kindness, and grace for ourselves, the more we can extend and put that out for other people. And that is one of the best ways to start to feel motivated again, is to create some self-love practices and habits. And we're going to talk more about that as we go through the week. I'm going to bring in, like I said, the other 4 elements that I want us to focus on in terms of what are some of the things getting in the way that have you feeling stuck or unmotivated. And then want to bring in some of these tools. And one of them is some deliberate practices around your own self-care. And yes, we talk about self-care a lot, but it matters. And to Terry's point, that love and grace is so important. And so with that, whatever's showing up for all of you, I love you. Thank you, Martha, heart to heart to you as well. Whatever's showing up for you inside these conversations, be gentle with yourself. Do some breathing, allow yourself to journal. If you get off these calls and you're feeling like, man, I'm so charged up, or you feel like there's been a lot of damn you candy barones because there's been truth, get out your trusty journal. And like I said, these things are awesome. I get them on Amazon. They're like, I don't know, 5 for $15 or something. I don't know. Love them because they fit in my purse. They fit in my computer bag. And I always have one around me so that as something comes up, I can journal or get that out. It's such a healing space, and it's such a way for you to get in and actually like look at your truth and have a bigger conversation. So I urge you, whatever's showing on for you. I love Martha. Bless you, Candy Brone. She has the BYCV. Feels better for me to say bless you, Candy Brone, than damn you. However it works for you. And I love you all as well. And so I want you to be kind. I want you to breathe into whatever fear, whatever triggers are showing up, and journal. If there's a space where you need to lean in and ask yourself, whew, there's a lot we just went through today. And for some of you that jumped on a little late, you might want to go back and rewind, being that there was so many damn you candy Brones that showed up today. And the conversation got really rich and really meaty. So I really honor all of you for showing up continually in this space. I urge you, if you ever want to see your own growth, especially for those of you that have been on these calls, go back to the very first episode when you showed up and look at how much more open, how much you're putting out there. Your growth has been phenomenal. These conversations get deeper and richer every day. And so I am truly honored. I am truly blessed to hold this space for you. And I'll be back tomorrow, and we're going to continue to dig in. So with that, everybody, be kind to yourself today. Breathe into whatever's showing up and jot your thoughts down. And most of all, self-love, love and grace, right? So heart-to-heart hugs to everybody. I love you. Mwah. I will see you all tomorrow.